This is Music Off the Record. I'm Dr. Ken Owen from Pierce College, and we're talking about the music that will be on Northwest Sinfonietta's upcoming concert. This concert titled Bach Double Concerto. So let's talk about Bach. Johann Sebastian Bach, of course, one of the great composers. There he is, end of the Baroque period. He was the youngest of 8 children. His father was a professional musician, as was his grandfather and his great-grandfather, so it always been for a long time, been a very musical family. And when his father isn't doing other things as the town musician, he was often teaching lessons in the home. So as this painting portrays, Bach was always around music from the very, very young age, from day one, I'm sure. But tragedy strikes when he's only 9 years old. His mother dies. Father fairly quickly remarries. He remarries a woman who is also a widow, and so it's a little bit of a his and hers mix. Tragically, his father, just months later, dies, leaving Bach with his brand new stepmom, who now has 5 children under the age of 12, as well as some older ones. There's some older ones who have left the house already and such. So rather than staying with this stepmom that he hardly knows, Bach ends up being raised by an older brother. But this widow of Bach's father is actually approached by a count who had, Bach's father was a twin. And so not long before Bach's father died, Bach's father's twin, or Bach's uncle, had also died. And he, of course, was also a professional musician who'd worked for this Count of Schwarzburg-Arnstadt, who writes this widow and says, and asks whether there was not another Bach available who would like to apply for Johann Christoph, that's Bach's father's twin, post. For I should and must have a Bach again. So you can see the Bach family was renowned for being fantastic musicians. Well, ironically, this stepmother of Bach says, the springs of musical talent in the Bach family have run dry within the last few years. And I'm sure it seems so with all these tragic deaths, but was not so. The greatest Bach of all was just getting started. So as I said, he ends up going and living with his older brother, Johann Christoph, who's already married and out of the house and has a career of his own. He is a church organist, but he's continuing his musical studies with Johann Pachelbel, who you may be familiar with, his Pachelbel canon. So young Johann Sebastian Bach graduates from school at quite a young age, very intelligent. He had been attending St. Michael's Church and was a choral scholar. Since he's graduated, he goes and he gets a job as an organist in the town of Arnstadt. And he has a sizable ego. I mean, he's a brilliant musician, but he knows it, and it gets him into a little bit of trouble. So it's a little bit confusing for us today, especially in the United States, because things are so separate. But in Germany, in Bach's time, church and schooling, everything was very much connected. So the church where Bach is working is connected to a college, and the music students at the college also provide music at the church, and they're also expected to get some of their education there, all those sort of things. So there's a student who plays the bassoon, who's actually older than Bach, because again, Bach graduated quite young and was already working. This bassoon player named Geiserbach, all one word, is sitting there, and as Bach walks by the town square, Bach calls out to him, calls him a Zipfelfagottist, which I've seen translated a couple of different ways, either greenhorn bassoonist or nanny goat bassoonist. Either way, it wasn't friendly. And they get into a bit of a spat. They tumble about in a fight on the town square. It probably didn't look exactly like this, but you get the point. The point is that Bach didn't get along with those students, those instrumentalists, and kind of refused to help out with them. Gets in a little trouble. Well, he finally moves on to a bigger and better job in Weimar, where he works for a few years until he decides he wants to move on to another job. And when he just leaves this job, he gets thrown in jail. You can't just leave a job when you want to. Life's a little different than it is for us now. So there's Bach, and he gets thrown in the slammer. He's there for 4 weeks for the grievous sin of trying to leave his job. He finally managed to get free and get to his new job in a place called Köthen. Now this is a court job. In other words, he's writing music at request for His Royal Highness. Here's where he's writing a lot of his concertos, instrumental music, and things like this. While he's there, his wife passes away, and he remarries a singer there. So he moves on to yet one more job. He applies for and gets the position in Leipzig to be he's actually the director of all the church music at several churches there in Leipzig. He's actually not the first choice for the job. The town council, as they're trying to hire them, they want Vivaldi and they want Telemann, and they end up having to settle for Bach because the other two turn him down, which which is ironic now. So he remains there for the rest of his career. In 1750, he has eye surgery for cataracts. Can you imagine eye surgery in the 1750s? Dies shortly after of a stroke. I don't know if that's connected with the surgery. I wouldn't be surprised. So there's the church in Leipzig at the time, just so you can get a feel for what it was like where he was working. Just lastly about Bach, he was very prolific. He wrote in every genre of the day except opera. Didn't seem to be interested in opera. He wrote 300 cantatas in 3 years. That's just remarkable speed. Known especially for his fugues and fugal writing, and just remarkable craftsmanship, incredible craftsmanship. And I hope you'll enjoy some of that craftsmanship as you listen to some Bach with us at the Northwest Sinfonietta concert.